Hello, my name is Dr. Alex Bandar. I am the founder and CEO of the Columbus Idea Foundry. We're one of the largest and most active maker spaces in the world here in Columbus, Ohio, in the United States. And last week I was grateful to present the keynote presentation at the Innovation Neighborhoods Conference in Dubai, in the UAE. And what follows are those slides from that presentation, annotated and narrated by myself. I hope you enjoy. This presentation is about innovation neighborhoods and, ultimately, how to create a planet of educated and empowered citizens. So first I'd like to mention my own personal belief is that children today, people today, are born into a world that is so complicated that they must go to school for 20 to 25 years and then work for 50 more just to provide value to society. One of the things that makes this easier, in my opinion, is technology. Technology allows us to do things that we can't do currently, or allows us to do things that we can do, but to do them faster, better, and cheaper. So the question is, how do we get more technology? I would suggest that the increase of technology happens one innovation at a time. So people discover things like fire, or the wheel, or penicillin, but these discoveries are random and serendipitous and lucky. What we need to do is find a way to thoughtfully find new innovations and improve technology in a very intentional way. And I think that is the definition of innovation. In my opinion, innovation means intentionally creating new value. This is how we can improve everybody's quality of life, by coming up with new innovations that improves technology that then improves our lives. And in my opinion, innovations are created by innovators. Let's look at people like Al-Khwarizmi, who invented the algorithm and algebra, or Sir Isaac Newton, who invented calculus, or Albert Einstein, who invented quantum mechanics. These are amazing discoveries, but unless you have a way to distribute that discovery throughout the whole world, these actually aren't very helpful. So the discovery of fire was a great advancement for humanity, but unless I have a lighter or matches in my pocket, that discovery doesn't do me much help. Hence, we need the industrialists. These are people who are manufacturers, who are business people, like Edison or Ford or Musk, who can take these innovations, but very efficiently manufacture them and distribute them around the world. That's how one person's innovation can improve everybody's quality of life. So how do we measure innovations? I would use the example of the patent. A patent is a legal contract between the state and an inventor saying, we recognize that you have created a unique idea. Now, let's find a way to make that valuable. So if we use patents as a measure of innovation, let's look at who is making the most patents. Universities. The top 100 universities a couple of years ago created nearly 6,000 patents in 2013. That's a lot of new ideas to help people. But if we compare that to the number of patents also created in 2013 that were created by the top 100 businesses around the world, they made 100,000 patents. This is almost 15 to 20 times as many as all of the top 100 universities in the world. So maybe we can recognize that universities are excellent at creating graduates, at creating students, at creating innovators, but maybe they're not the place where you create day-to-day innovations that help us in our everyday life. Businesses, corporations, they're very good at finding ways to add value, but I bet you neither of these, the universities nor the businesses, will it be very easy to get more innovations out of them. They're already working very hard. I'm not sure it's possible to double or triple or 10x the number of innovations that are coming from universities and businesses. But if we look at independent inventors, people like you or I, in 2013, they made 20,000 patents in the United States alone. This is 3 times as many as all of the patents created in the top 100 worldwide universities, and about 15%, 20% of all the patents created by the top 100 businesses in the world. I think there's a lot of extra room to increase by 10x or more the number of patents that are created by independent inventors. So a surprising amount of patents and ideas are coming from people like you and me. So is it possible then to make Al-Khwarizmi proud and make an algebraic equation that is the answer to how to increase the number of innovations. So is it possible to write an equation to solve the problem, how do we make more innovators? And I think the answer is yes, we can write this equation. I will spare you the equation itself, but I will show you a graphical representation of that equation. And here it is. I believe that innovations are created by innovators. And innovators create many ideas. Some of those ideas are good ideas. And then some of those good ideas get turned into a prototype. A prototype is a test product, an initial version of your idea that you can hold, that you can show to a customer and ask them, would you buy this? You can show it to a manufacturer and say, can you make me 1 million of these? Show it to an investor and say, would you invest in my startup if I was making this? And ultimately show it to a retailer and say, if I created these, would you sell these? So once you have that prototype, it's fairly easy to get into the manufacturing stream. We have a worldwide, robust network of manufacturers and distributors and retailers who can take that idea and distribute it through the marketplace. So in my opinion, the bottleneck is increasing the number of good ideas and then making it much easier to prototype those good ideas. So I think one way to increase the number of good ideas is simply to increase the number of innovators. If we do that, we increase more ideas, more of those ideas will be good ideas, and if we then make it very easy to open up this pipeline by making it simpler to prototype those products, then once we've done that, we have a pipeline from people's minds to the marketplace. We've opened up the bottleneck that makes it easier for people like you and me to take our ideas and actually use them to improve people's quality of life. But you might say, Alex, not everybody is a genius. Not everybody is a scientist or an engineer. How can everyone be an innovator? Well, someone who thinks that everyone can be an innovator is Sir Ken Robinson. He has one of the most watched TED Talks in the world. I highly recommend it. He's an educator. And he likes to point out that many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not, because the thing they were good at in school wasn't valued. And the key word here is school. Schools for the last 75 years have been designed to produce graduates who are good at working in factories or good at working in offices. But I tell you, if you're working in a factory right now, in 10 or 20 years, that job might be performed by a robot. Even if you're working in an office right now, in a few years, that job might be done by an artificially intelligent software program. So what we need to do is we need to change the way people learn, change school so that they create people who aren't just good at working in factories or offices, but are good at doing things that robots and software aren't good at. We need to create people who are good at innovating. And an exercise that Sir Ken Robinson likes to do to prove that everyone can be creative and innovative is to show them this and ask, what is this? If you ask people, most folks might say, that's a circle. But if you ask a 5-year-old child, she might say, this is a ball, or it's the moon, or it's cake. So everyone is born creative, imaginative, and playful. We're all born innovative. The challenge is to remain innovative and creative and playful as we become adults. So I ask again, who are our innovators? Of course, we have scientists and engineers, but then I ask, are musicians or dancers or athletes, can they be innovators too? I believe they can. What about school children or grandparents or college students? Even nurses or people working in industry or in the factories, at coffee shops, mothers and fathers at home, I think all of these people can be innovators. And in fact, I think they can be better innovators than scientists and engineers, and I'll explain why. For people who are technically talented, people like scientists and engineers, solving problems is easy and it's even fun. The challenge is finding a problem in the first place. And innovation doesn't come from somebody with their head in their hands, their feet up on their desk, daydreaming and brainstorming about the next new idea. That's a romantic vision of a creative genius, but really, problems are discovered by people who are doing work. So if you empower folks who are doing work and tell them, if you find a problem, for example, if you were a nurse in the hospital room or the patient's room, or if you're a factory worker on the factory floor, if you find a problem or a challenge, Don't just think that's too bad, that's life. Be empowered to design and innovate around it. That's what I'd like to see everyone become capable of doing. And if you can do that, then you have had a 10x increase in the number of innovators around the planet. So I do firmly believe that everyone can be an innovator. So let's take a step back, and I'll give a little bit of history about what made me interested in innovation. And when I was a college student, I was someone who was very interested in doing things like creating flying cars, or jetpacks, or even an elevator into space. So I studied many things, from electrical to mechanical to civil engineering, and I learned pretty quickly that people can design nearly anything, but you can't build everything, because the materials today can't necessarily support every design we can think of. Frankly, materials can break. So I thought what would be exciting would be to create a new material. If you can make a more electrically conductive type of copper, then maybe somebody can design a faster computer. If you can make a carbon fiber strand or a stronger steel, maybe somebody can design that elevator into space. And I thought if you could make a new material, this would be like adding another color to the palette that all of the other engineers, scientists, and designers are painting with. And I thought that would be very exciting. So I went into metals and manufacturing and did that for about 10 years and worked with companies like Apple, MIT, and Airbus, and many more. And while I was working in industrial metals and manufacturing, my sister Layla became an artist of metals, a sculptor and a jeweler, and a professor of art. And she actually invited me to give a guest lecture to her art students one day to teach her students the science of forming metals, the science behind artistic metallurgy. And I thought this would be fun, and I visited her art space. And within just a few minutes, I was embarrassed to discover that not only could I not teach her art students something practical, my knowledge was very theoretical, but they were all much better machinists and welders and sculptors and makers than I. So if I had an idea, maybe I could write a computer program about it or design an alloy or a process. If she or her art students had an idea, they just made the thing, and they were holding it just an hour or two later. I was very envious of their talent. I was also very envious of the place where my sister lived and worked. She worked in a place called the Vermont Studio Center, which used to be an old farm where they built 30 bedrooms. And every month they have 30 artists visit from all around the world, from Asia, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, South America, the US. During the day, they learn new tips and tricks. If you're a fine artist, maybe you learn photography. If you're a photographer, maybe you learn to write or to paint. So when you spend your month here, you return having informed your medium, your talent, with something else. And I think that's where innovation comes from, by seeing a problem from a different point of view. And the evening, after everyone had worked all day, they would share conversation and dinner around the campfire. This was the most exciting and interesting place I had ever been, and I very much wanted to live and work in a place like this. But I also wanted to add a technology component. I wanted to have a place where you could not just make art, but also make physical prototypes for retail products or inventions. And I think that if you mix art and technology, you get innovation. But unfortunately, I didn't think that I would be able to have the time or money to go back to college to learn things like 3D design or 3D printing. I didn't have money to hire instructors to come and start a place like this. But that's when I discovered that, in fact, YouTube is the world's university now. It's possible to create something like a college without professors, or to create a school where the answer to every question is Google it. This is because information is free now. This is a very disruptive fact that not a lot of people have realized yet, but I think it's true. You can learn nearly anything this way, online. But you need more than knowledge to create something. You need a blueprint, you need a plan, you need a design. This used to mean that you had to spend a lot of money for expensive CAD software, and you had to be a talented draftsperson or CAD operator. However, now design tools, thanks to the open source software movement, these are free now as well. And in fact, they're very easy to use. Here we have an example of a free computer program called Sculptress, which allows you to essentially digitally sculpt clay just by moving your mouse. So you can see how intuitive and how easy and accessible this is. So today's design tools are amazingly easy to use without much training. Even virtual reality allows you to wear the goggles, use some controllers, and create your idea out of thin air. So you can see how easy it is, if you have a vision in your mind, to create a digital file of that vision. And you can create more than just art. You can create physical products as well. So here, this person is using virtual reality to improve a new virtual reality headset. So you see this virtuous cycle of continuous improvement. And once you have that digital design, there are machines that can create things for you. Computer-controlled machines that can carve metal or wood or plastic automatically, 3D printers that can print in plastic and even metal, and laser cutters that can cut wood, plastic, metal, and more. So as you can see, if you can create a digital 3D file, and we've shown that you can do that very easily with virtual reality or free software, and in fact you can learn how to do that by watching YouTube, then there are machines that will take those digital files and create 3D physical objects for you. So in a sense, digital prototyping makes making easier. It's now easier to take an idea out of your head and hold it in your hand. So what do we do with this information? Well, I think we start with people. We take a community of folks who are creative, passionate, talented, innovative, and you show them how to learn from the web. You teach them how to teach themselves. This is very important. You teach people how to teach themselves. And then you teach them the importance of creating things like mobile applications, websites, Internet of Things, and Bluetooth, all the electronics and programming that are revolutionizing our world. But you also show them the importance of creating a physical 3D prototype, of making a plastic 3D printed shape, or a new welded metal sculpture or project for a vehicle, for example. You take all this information and people, and you put it in one big building, and you call this a makerspace. So we put education, software design, hardware design, and people all together under one roof. The word we're using to describe something like this is increasingly a makerspace. This is a place where you go to make things. This is a picture of the Columbus Idea Foundry. This is the makerspace that I founded 10 years ago. We're located in Columbus, Ohio, and we have tools from 3D printers to welding and woodworking and jewelry making, electronics and robotics and more. We teach very quick classes. I call them theory light, practice heavy. So learn how to weld in an afternoon or learn woodworking in a weekend. And then we sell a membership. So think of a gym, but instead of exercising, instead of working out, you exercise your mind. You create things. We are one of the largest in the world, one of the most active in the world. We've placed #1 in many international competitions on making things. We have nearly 1,000 members, several hundred startups and small businesses and entrepreneurs. And in fact, some of our businesses have received investment from people like Sir Richard Branson, Mark Cuban, Steve Case, and other people interested in investing in startups. Our companies have ranged from blockchain to 3D fabrication technology and more. Here we have a snapshot of some of our members doing everything from machining and welding to growing food to designing and electronics and more. We're also glad to have old world craft like metalworking and blacksmithing under our roof. So we keep old traditions alive while we marry them with modern technology. I'm very proud to have a place that has something like blacksmithing and virtual reality and drone design all under one roof. We also have exciting conversations. It's a place that people want to talk about innovative and new things. Like I said, we teach people how to use tools. But then we also teach people how to do things like podcasting and video blogging. So a makerspace should do more than teach people how to create their idea. We need to teach them how to tell their story, how to sell that idea, how to become an entrepreneur. I think that's part of our mission as well. And we even have fun and exciting things like drone racing, where people can learn how to design, build, and fly their own flying robot, their own drone, which you can see with virtual reality from a camera mounted on the drone. And here we'll race them through our building. We'll have a large audience and a lot of fun. So we are an interesting and exciting place that people want to be. One of my favorite products that has come out of the Idea Foundry is an electric motorcycle made by our friend Todd Perkins. Todd has always wanted to design and build his own electric motorcycle, but he's not a trained designer, not a classically trained engineer, so he taught himself everything he needed to know: 3D design, 3D machining, electronics, all of that from the web, from the internet, from places like YouTube and online schools. And then he used our resources at the Columbus Idea Foundry to create his bike, to do the 3D machining, to do the welding. And not only did he build his electric motorcycle, but his bike spent 1 month on display at the International Motorcycle Hall of Fame here in the United States. So here you have someone with passion and vision who has been activated by the information available on the web and empowered by the tools that we have at our shared resource, at our makerspace. So he didn't need to buy all of his own tools, all of his own equipment, or have his own workshop. This is a very efficient way to help people realize their ideas, their passions, their innovations, and their dreams. I believe there are many, many more people like Todd out in the world, and I would like to help all of them create their ideas. And I believe when you empower everyone, amazing things will be made. So here we have a snapshot of our neighborhood. Our building is down here. We're just a few blocks from downtown Columbus, Ohio. We're right next to the #1 science museum in the United States. We're next to the largest arts center in our hometown of Columbus, Ohio. And within the next year, nearly 1,000 new homes for young professionals, for entrepreneurs, for artists and software developers will be created in the neighborhood. So we have science, we have art, we have technology and entrepreneurship, we have walkable bars and coffee shops and restaurants, and a place that people can live. In my opinion, this is one of the most innovative neighborhoods in the entire world. And this is a place where people like to live. The buildings where people are living are very interesting, are artistic, are urban and green at the same time. And if you have a neighborhood which you've empowered people to be creative and innovative in, they're going to help create the space and make the neighborhood amazing. So throughout the year, there are always exciting events and festivals going on. And this is something that people are proud to live in. We have a community of purpose where people who choose to live here are all bound by a common passion. They all like to create, whether they're an artist, a technologist, or an entrepreneur. And this is something I think should be celebrated. And in conjunction with the growth of our neighborhood, I'd like to compare how Columbus, Ohio is doing as well. 3 years ago, Columbus was awarded the #1 most intelligent community in the world. 2 years ago, we were the #1 smart city in the United States. And last year, we also placed #1 in many international competitions. So I think we can see that a small city like Columbus, Ohio can actually out-innovate, can outperform larger cities like San Francisco or London or New York, simply by having a place where they concentrate all of the creative and technological energy in one neighborhood, in one building, in one community. And when you do that, you give people the chance to be greater than the sum of their parts. And this results in amazing things. This, I think, is very timely, because I'm afraid this little cartoon is about to happen. I think many jobs that are being performed today by people will be automated or performed by robots in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So it's important to teach people how to teach themselves. I also think it's possible to spread this culture around the world. There's a device called the Ubi Slate, which is a $35 phone and a tablet. This is being provided in India. There's also a device called the Gravity Light. This is a high gear ratio electric motor that generates clean light and electricity just from the force of gravity. A person can attach a 20-pound bag of rocks or sand. Each time they lift it, gravity pulls it down and it generates clean light and electricity for 20 minutes. You can use this to charge your tablet. And then Google has a plan to beam Wi-Fi to the planet with this fleet of hot air balloons. It's called Project Loon, and it sounds a little bit crazy, but it's already working in New Zealand, and there's a great TED Talk about this. Facebook also has a program called Project Aquila, which will also beam Wi-Fi to the planet using a fleet of solar electric airplanes. So here we have a plan where in 10 or 20 years, maybe it's possible that every person on the planet can have a cheap, browsable device that allows them to surf YouTube, surf the web, email people, and collaborate with innovators all around the world. You can charge it for free with something like a free electric gravity light, and you can surf the web with things like Project Loon or Project Aquila. I think it's possible for these technologies to spread this culture of innovation around the world. And if we do that, now instead of a small pie slice of the total global talent, all of our designers, engineers, and scientists, if you add them up, maybe it's 1% or 2% of the planet. But instead, if you can empower everyone around the world, I think in 20 years or 30 years, we have a potential pool of 10 billion educated and empowered innovators. This is something I'm very passionate about, and I believe will happen. And I think it's important to happen because as automation and robotics take many jobs that are currently being performed now, we're going to have to do something new and different and innovative. We're going to need a place like a makerspace that is faster and cheaper than college to learn a market valuable skill. So as we wrap up this presentation, please remember, I think life is hard. Technology makes it easier. Technology improves with each innovation. Everyone can now be an innovator, and that's because, in my opinion, knowledge is free, design tools are free, and machines can make things for us. So that makes prototyping easier. All of this is important because the world is changing quickly. Problems are easy to solve, but they're hard to find. So if we can teach everyone that they are an innovator, we're going to discover more problems and empower people to design and solve around them with innovations, with products. Innovation neighborhoods can empower people by having a makerspace at its center, at the middle of this neighborhood, and you can be a home to entrepreneurs and designers and artists and developers. And you can make it a fun place to be by having coffee shops and restaurants and parks. And finally, innovation neighborhoods are where people can discover and live their passions. I think it's a tragedy if someone is 100 years old before they ever pick up a paintbrush or solder a circuit or program a computer and wish they had been doing it their whole life. If you can provide a place where people can get a quick taste of a new talent and see if they enjoy it, if they have a passion for it, then you give them the opportunity to pursue that for the rest of their life. So anyone can learn anything and create anything. Lifelong learning and collaborative creation are the way of life. Innovation neighborhoods are a community of purpose. People choose to live here. They're all bound by a common passion of creating. And as this culture spreads around the world, innovation neighborhoods will serve as engines of innovation and improve all of our lives. Thank you very much. I'm always excited to discuss this culture with anyone, so please feel free to email me at alex@ideafoundry.com or check out our website at ideafoundry.com. Thank you so much for listening.